Our next speaker, you're going to want to hear everything, and you're going to want to be listening very closely to what he has to say. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Professor Shy Arkin, Vice President, Research and Development at the Hebrew University.
Thank you very much, everyone. Before I start, I just want to say one or two words as an Israeli. Forgive the accent, that's my mother's doing. You're probably used to a foreign minister of your country providing that level of staunch support for Israel. As an Israeli that spends more time abroad than he does back home, this is not something that we're used to. So it's really wonderful to be here. Okay. So let me get my clicker out, and we will start. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to tell you about the Hebrew University, and I found that the best way to do that is by way of example. So you've heard some of the numbers, you've heard some of the statistics. I'm going to show you by way of example, and hopefully by day's end you'll know much more about what it is that we do, how we've contributed, and how we promote the new changing phase, what we tend to call in Hebrew tikkun olam, mending the world, repairing the world, making it a better place. So the mission that these formidable founding fathers have gave us is to propel the Israeli economy, the Israeli culture, to bring about societal change. And these are indeed amazing individuals, the founders of our university. And the reason that I like to show their pictures is because they represent dramatically different disciplines. So we try to cover all of those, all aspects of human knowledge. So we have, of course, Chaim Weitzman on the left, the first chairman of our board of governors. He's my favorite because, like myself, he's a biochemist. To his right, we have Israel's poet laureate, Chaim Nachman Bialik. In the center, we have Martin Buber, a philosopher representing the humanities. To his right, we have Sigmund Freud, of course, and no one needs an introduction who the individual on the right is. That's our founder, Albert Einstein. So the first thing that we pride ourselves, is basic research excellence. The sort of research excellence that generates Nobel Prizes, that generates Fields Medal, that generates Balzan Prizes and Turing Award. That is where we aim. And I'll give you one or two examples about people in our university that won those and why did they win that. And after that, I'm going to transition myself to something somewhat different. How we take the fruits of this wonderful research and convert that to applications. Technology transfer is what we call it. So here's our pride and glory, the only Israeli to have won the most prestigious award in the world of mathematics. There is no Nobel Prize in mathematics. It's called the Fields Medal. This is our very own Elon Lindenstrauss. I wish I could tell you what it is that he does, but I'm a humble biochemist, so it's a bit beyond me. This is Robert Uman. This is another mathematician from the Hebrew University, and what I want you to notice is an amazing thing. So he won a Nobel Prize in economics, of course, in using sophisticated analytical tools based on game theory to come up with a clever way to make decisions. That's what he wins a Nobel Prize for. But look at these two guys. They also win a Nobel Prize in economics for how to make decisions, but now based on entirely a different way, using psychology. So this shows you the breadth of the Hebrew University. We cover all realms of decision making, from mathematical analysis to psychology. And this, of course, is Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, the first Israelis to have won a Nobel Prize. We also have the progenitor of all computer science in Israel, Michael Rabin. The Turing Award is the most prestigious prize in computer science. The movie after Alan Turing was just released a few months ago. And he actually originated from the math department at the time that there were no computer science department. And he established the first computer science institute, and of course the rest is history. Israel is now a superpower in computer science, resulting in all the wonderful high-tech ventures that you're familiar with. We're also quite strong in medicine. These are Professor Chaim Seeger, or Howard Seeger, and Aharon Razin. They discovered the chemical modification that undertakes in your genetic information that results in the fact that while the tip of your finger has the same set of instructions, the same DNA, as does the DNA in your brain or in your muscle, the expression of that DNA results in dramatically different outcomes. They have discovered how DNA is annotated. Okay, and these are some more famous graduates of the Hebrew University. Again, the number 7 was already mentioned. 7 of our graduates or faculty members have won a Nobel Prize in the last decade, and that's a number that we're quite proud of. But what I wanted to focus on today, and that's a theme of what we do in Israel and at the Hebrew University, is how we translate those wonderful basic research into application that you use perhaps on a daily or weekly basis, but never associated with Israel, let alone with the Hebrew University. And I'm going to give you applications from 4 different fields, from computer science, material science, agriculture, and medicine. And I can go for 3 hours doing this sort of thing. I have a list of them, and then I'm asked, how many minutes do I have? 20 minutes? That means that I get to show 20 applications. You want 30 minutes? 30 applications. So basically, stop me when you feel tired. Okay, so let's go with computer science. Israel is quite known for that. And some of my thunder has already been stolen, but it's simply because it's an unbelievable amount of thunder. So this is Professor Arnon Shashua. Mobileye was mentioned in a second, and I'll go over it. But if you remember only one sentence of anything that I will say to you today, it's the following sentence. What does research at the Hebrew University result? It results in saving lives. It's as simple as that. It's a wonderful one-liner, and I can make that statement boldly based on what this technology does. Mobileye is an active technology for avoidance of accidents. The U.S. insurance companies maintain that 30 to 40% of accidents are prevented by Mobileye. They control 85% of the world market. All brand new Volvos, BMWs, Mercedes, high-end automobiles are all pre-installed with Mobileye, all generated, researched, manufactured in Jerusalem. 1,000 people work in this company. It is Israel's largest IPO and the largest company to have ever come out of any university in the world. More than Stanford, more than MIT, more than Caltech, more than Harvard. This company is worth today $12 billion. The most amazing thing is, if you send your kids to the Hebrew University to study computer science, guess who's going to be their teacher? He's still there. He's still within the university. So what is this technology? Of course, it's a computer vision. It analyzes everything in front of your vehicle. If it's a pedestrian, if you're swaying between the lanes, and it will stop the car. You can lose focus. This thing never, ever loses focus. Okay? And again, think about this for a second. People all over the world, if it's in the Gulf state, if it's in all countries in the world, Africa, South America, are driving in cars and their lives are being saved by a company in Jerusalem. Okay, now the amazing thing is, so this is an example of a serial entrepreneur. You know, he's a relatively wealthy man, in fact, very, very wealthy man, having a company that's $12 billion. What does he do? Here's another company based on computer vision, similar technology. So this is called OrCam. Those of you that know Hebrew, O is light, so it's light camera. What does this company do? It's a little camera that's installed on your glasses, and it basically analyzes everything in front of you for the visually impaired. So visually impaired means that you're seeing a blur, but you don't know what that is. So all you need to do is to point your finger, and this camera will decipher what that is. So it will read the newspaper to you. It will tell you the color of the traffic light, the number of the bus. You can see right now it's reading. It has a computer that sits here and an earpiece over here. And it tells you everything. That's the color of the traffic light, the number of the bus. It also recognizes individuals from your database. Okay, this is for the visually impaired. This company already has more than 100 engineers and scientists. Again, all designed, researched, manufactured in Jerusalem. Another, and this is the last example from the School of Computer Science, we're surrounded by video surveillance cameras all around us. Very easy to install a camera. It's very, very cheap. The only slight problem is, who has time to analyze all those video data? Okay? If you have a camera capturing 24 hours worth of film, how long does it take to analyze that? The answer is, guess what? 24 hours, because you can't press fast forward. You've already seen this. This is Shmuel Peleg's brief cam as well. What he does, and this is the technology that won the Wall Street Journal Best Technology a few years back, he generates a synopsis. So 2 minutes becomes 20 seconds. 3 hours becomes a minute and a half. You see the events here on the right in real time, but they're transposed one on top of the other. So it's very easy to go through these video data and see what are the events that are taking place. And is this technology useful? Well, I wouldn't be telling you if it wouldn't be. This is the technology that enabled the CIA and the FBI to rapidly capture the bombers of the Boston City Marathon. Why? Because you don't need to go through tens of thousands of video hours of data. You use this technology, it generates a synopsis, and you can see that clearly. So again, there's a huge amount of additional computer science startups and technologies. This is really just the tip of the iceberg, but we have to move quickly. Material science, we have a very strong nano center that brings together people from all realms of the campus. And one of our brightest luminaries is Uri Banim. There are 3 different kinds of light bulbs out there. The Edison incandescent light bulbs that is incredibly inefficient. It generates a huge amount of heat. Fluorescent light bulbs that are rather energy efficient, but the most energy efficient light bulb out there are LEDs. The problem with LEDs is when you want to tune their spectrum, dramatic loss of efficiency. So what's the point of using LEDs if you want to tune them and you lose the efficiency? Uri Banin has invented a technology and started a company that was fully bought by the largest manufacturer in the world of LEDs. That's Merck, the German chemical giant company. And again, you're going to see this as the new LED screens in your laptops, in your televisions, in your iPhones. That's going to be the flash. And the amazing thing is that while Merck bought the company in its entirety, they decided to keep all of the activity, the R&D, in the campus because they realized that's where the best ideas come from. Here's another thing that we're doing in our nano center, and that is composite materials. And you see the gentleman on the right, that's another one of our serial entrepreneurs. That's Oded Shosayov. And what he's trying to do is to make the sludge on the right, the white stuff, a useful material. Now the white stuff on the right, cellulose sludge, is in fact one of the cheapest materials known to man. How cheap is it? People will pay you money to take it away from them because this is the waste product of the paper pulp industry. Why is it so useless? Because it has very poor mechanical properties. What you can see is when you press the material and then you relieve the pressure, it does not go back to the same shape. So it's a useless material. It has plastic properties. But on the left, you see the same material that has been infused with something that is now making it lighter than rubber and more elastic than rubber. And seriously, we already have discussions with companies such as Nike and Reebok to have this as the soles of your shoes. Again, think about this. Lighter than rubber and more elastic than rubber. So what did he infuse in this a waste product from the paper pulp industry? He infused the most flexible and elastic component known in nature. So Oded Shosayov is a great biologist. He looked at nature and asked, what's the most elastic component in nature? And no, it's not rubber. Believe it or not, it's the engine that enables fleas to jump higher than their size relative to any other creature on Earth. They have a mechanical accordion that can be compressed 1,000-fold. So he genetically engineered that to bind cellulose, and now you have something that's both lighter than rubber and more elastic than rubber. We have a very strong center in printing today, and printing is not just to manufacture brochures today. Now all the hype is 3D printing, so you're actually printing and manufacturing at the same time. But what I want to show you here is one of the best printing facilities in the world for printing on glass. So you've all seen beautiful stained glass windows. The problem is if you scratch it, guess what happens to the stain? It's scratched off. This company over here called Diptech generates windows that are permanently stained, weather resistant, because the nano-sized ink particles are infused within the glass, and the only way to remove it is by breaking the glass themselves. And buildings all over the world are covered with these beautiful glass windows that are painted using this sort of technology, using the printers. Professor Magdassi is also the father of one of these amazing solar plants. So the trick in this solar plant, which is the largest one in the world in the western United States, is you have a huge number of mirrors all focusing the light rays at one particular point. That one particular point becomes very, very hot, and then it generates steam from water. So what do you need from that area, which is the focal point? You need that to be highly absorbent of heat. You needed to transfer the heat very well, but you also needed to be resistant because you don't want to be coating it continuously. Professor Magdassi's technology is at the heart of this huge facility because he generates the heat-resistant conducting coating. Okay, and this is the largest such plant in the world. Now, what I want you to do is to keep Professor Magdassi in mind in a second, because I'm going to show you in 2-3 minutes' time another thing that he's doing with printing. Okay, we have a very strong faculty of medicine. I'm going to give you just 2 or 3 examples. And again, this was shown already. The leading drug in the world for the treatment of dementia, that one suffers from Alzheimer, is generated by Professor Marta van Stockhausen research. This is called Exelon. It is marketed by Novartis all over the world. Annual sales easily exceed $1.3 billion. Now, why do I use that large number? I use that large number to impress upon you that it's, of course, not just the residents of the greater Jerusalem area that are buying these pills, nor is it the residents of Israel. People all over the world are enjoying the health benefits of research that takes place in Jerusalem. Now notice in Novartis it doesn't actually say made in Israel or designed in Israel, but nonetheless, this is one of the best examples of tikkun olam. Okay, this is making the world a better place due to research that takes place at the Hebrew University. And here's another example. This is the first anti-cancer drug to come out of Israel against ovarian cancer, and the first nano drug approved by the Federal Drug Administration in the US. This is called Doxil. It's marketed by Johnson & Johnson. It's a very clever idea. What they've done here is they've taken a very, very potent chemotherapeutic agent and encased that in a lipid droplet. The lipid droplet maintains a closed environment. It only opens at the area where you need it, so it reduces toxicity and side effects dramatically. And that's why this drug also sells close to $1 billion every year. It's the leading cure for ovarian cancer. We're also doing amazing work in Parkinson, and this was also shown before that. This is Professor Chagai Bergman. Have a look at these 2 videos. You see 2 individuals. The individual on the top looks perfectly normal and healthy. The individual on the bottom is exhibiting severe Parkinson symptoms. He can't resist being pulled at all. He can't generate very, 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 very simple mechanical motions. Now, the amazing thing is that there's only 2 differences between these 2 videos. 2 weeks and deep brain stimulation. Okay, and we've done several hundreds of these. Electrodes are inserted in a particular part of the brain, controlled by a computer. And again, the results are here right in front of you. Simply amazing. But I don't want to leave you with pictures of people with Parkinson's or Alzheimer. I think the best way to lead is with agriculture. And here, we lead all of Israel simply because we're the only university that teaches and conducts research in agriculture. And that's all done in the Faculty of Agriculture in Rehovot, which is my favorite faculty because that's where I studied. So our biggest claim to fame by far is cherry tomatoes. And if you think about this for a second, none of you as kids had ate cherry tomatoes because they were not a viable agricultural product. Their shelf life was measured in hours. It was measured in hours until the research of Nachum Kedar and Chaim Rabinovich. What they did was that they found tomato strains that did not ripen. Normally that's considered a useless product. Why would you ever want to have a vegetable that never ripens? But if we cross these with cherry tomatoes that ripen too quickly, guess what? We get cherry tomatoes that ripen within a period of a few days, in a week or so. Every single cherry tomato in the world that is sold in Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, Hamburg, San Francisco, Tokyo, every single cherry tomato in the world can be traced to this sort of work. Okay, so not many scientists or universities can say that they have changed what people eat. We can do that. We don't only do tomatoes, we also do peppers. You know, my kids, very difficult to convince them to eat tomatoes, so I said, no, peppers as well. Jonathan Elkin can generate whatever color variety of pepper you want. None of this is GMO, by the way. All of this is perfectly accepted to the European market. Coming in Israel, in which the internal market is practically irrelevant, we need to abide by the world market. We abide by the American criteria, European criteria, and vice versa. Okay? So wonderful strains of pepper that are cold resistant. which do wonders for the cost of peppers in the winter months because you don't need to heat the greenhouse so much. We're also generating brand new strains of chickpeas or garbanzo beans, the world's best protein source from a non-animal source. This is mainly for sub-Saharan Africa, generating drought-resistant strains. Once you finish growing your cherry tomatoes or your bell peppers or whatever it is you've grown, you need to grow something else in your field. You need to clear the field. Normally what people used to do is they would pour dreadful chemicals and then they would need to wash them, and of course that's an environmental catastrophe because it goes and it destroys the aquifer, etc. All of that changed dramatically when Yaakov Katan, who won an Israel Prize for this sort of invention, invented solarization. What do? Very simple. You put plastic sheets on the ground, sun goes through the plastic sheets, generates a local greenhouse effect, heats the land, wait a few days, remove the plastic sheets, and you're done. No impact whatsoever on the environment. By far, not only the most effective, but the most environmentally friendly way of doing that. And the last example that actually the penultimate example that I'm giving you from agriculture is very close to me, because as a vegetarian, we need to rely on what we call superfoods today. So no food is better than sesame for vegetarians. And why is that? Fantastic protein content, fantastic iron, and calcium as well. So this is really wonderful. The problem with sesame, it's very expensive. Why? Because as you can see in this picture, it's harvested by hand. Because the pods of the sesame seeds, the moment that they ripen, open, and they ripen at different times. So if the pods on the top are open, and the pods on the top and the bottom are not, if you're going to come back with a combine or a tractor to harvest this, 3/4 of your yield are going to be on the ground. Well, what you see here is the first ever mechanical harvesting of sesame seeds. Why? Because Tzvika Peleg invented, or was able to perfect, a sesame bran that the pods simply don't open. So it ripens, but it remains closed. Wait a month until all the pods are ready, and then use a combine, okay? The first time ever. This was done a few months ago, and now the price of sesame will decrease because not only do you not need so much labor, but the yield per hectare is going to be much, much higher. We also are doing work with in the Faculty of Agriculture to generate medical products. Okay? So collagen is normally associated with beautiful, voluptuous lips of Hollywood movie stars. But no one doesn't actually realize, where does collagen come from? Collagen comes from cadavers. Okay? So that's the source of what the Hollywood movie stars are injecting in their lips. Collagen is actually very, very, very important for medicine, not just to beautify Hollywood movie stars, because collagen is the major component of all of our wrists, etc. So it's really a critical component. It's the most abundant protein in the body. And the only non-human source of collagen that is fully approved to replace your cartilage comes from the Hebrew University, a company called Coplan, traded on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. This is human collagen generated in tobacco leaves. You can use it for whatever you want. Okay? So you can't talk about Israeli technologies without mentioning what we do with water. We're an arid region, not unlike Australia. And when you don't have enough water, you need to do two things. First, get more water. Second, use it more efficiently. That's exactly what we do. On the left, you see water reclamation sites. Israel reclaims 80%, 80% of its water for agriculture. Country number 2 in the world is Spain. They reclaim 20%. Okay? And it's not just that we have more plants. The plants are far more sophisticated. On the right, you see how we use water more efficiently. It was already mentioned, drip irrigation was invented in Israel. Today, you don't actually see drip irrigation. It all goes underground with sensors that monitor the humidity in the shoots of the trees, okay? And you're only using the amount of water that you need. So that's that, and I think now we're going to continue. You know, it's time for dessert. Although you're going to hear Charlie before me. It gets even better in a second. Okay, time for dessert. What does one have with dessert, of course? You have coffee. can I show you how we serve coffee at the Hebrew University? Okay? This is our latest startup, and I told you to remember Professor Shlomo Magdassi, who's a worldwide expert in printing. Guess what he's printing on now? So this is about a few months old. Single guys in the audience may notice that the last part, very, very useful. So these are nanoparticles of coffee that are printed using a simple inkjet printer. You'll have a few examples of what it is that we do out of a huge number, and that's the changing face of the university. Thank you very much.